We know. Another recruiting podcast, just what the world needed, right? But hear us out. Welcome to HigherHer, the podcast where women in talent don't just have a seat at the table, they're running the whole damn meeting. If you've ever been talked over in a strategy session, had your hiring insights ignored until middle management Brad repeated them, or just wondered why the people shaping the workforce don't actually reflect the workforce, this one's for you. We're bringing you bold conversations, real career stories, and the kind of no BS recruiting talk you actually want to hear. So buckle up, because we're about to flip the script on talent leadership, one episode at a time.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of HigherHer. We are a podcast put on by Talent Collective, and Talent Collective is a community for women in the talent acquisition world. We're really excited to have a new guest here today, Casey Forbes. I'll let her introduce herself a little bit more in a moment, but just high level. So Casey has been in the world of TA for the past 7 years. She's been supporting a variety of different global tech companies, and she's currently at Testlio, which is a remote-first software testing company. She also this is really cool and very interesting to me, of course, but she's co-founder of another global TA networking community called TotallyTA. So really excited to get to know you more today here, Casey. So we'll pass it over to you. Tell us a little bit about, how you got into talent acquisition, a little bit about your journey and what you're doing now.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for the warm introduction. So as Krista says, I have been in TA for, I am reaching 7 years. And when I went to the University of Tampa, right before I graduated, I think it was a week before, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I was doing marketing administration for the hospitality industry, because that's really big in Florida. And I was kind of panicking, and I reached out to my dad, and he's like, "Have you ever heard of recruitment? I feel like you kind of have the personality for it." I mean, seriously, since 7 years later, I have been in this industry, and I've been loving it. Before Tesla, I have been working for global tech companies, hiring all around the world, you name it, EMEA, and now APAC. So that's been super exciting. And like Krista says, I am also not just in talent acquisition, but I am also a community lead / co-founder for another TA community, which has been wonderful. And we have TAs from all around the world. And I say, if you have to describe me in a couple words, I like to consider myself a people connector, empathetic storyteller, and community builder, because I love what I do, and I'm definitely not afraid to show it.
Yeah, I love that. Well, thank you. Yeah, I think there's a lot of us that can identify with that people connector piece. People that are connectors tend to find themselves in TA. And whenever I talk with someone that's not in TA, that's a people connector, I'm like, have you ever considered recruiting?
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. Well, let's get into it. We're going to start you off with kind of a serious question and, go deep a little bit. So what has been something in your life, maybe career or personal, that has been maybe a more serious challenge for you? Something that was really difficult for you to go through. We all have challenges. We're all human. And yeah, we'd love to hear a little bit about that situation.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. First off, I appreciate this question because I never get asked this. So I have to say, the first thing that comes to my mind is, one of the biggest challenges in my career. And since I've actually just recently overcome this and, life is not perfect, I'm always going to try to improve and figure, that's just life. But one thing that I struggled with was honestly transitioning out of the traditional 9-to-5 corporate job into a fully remote career. Something that would give me the flexibility and the freedom to be the digital nomad and remote work advocate I am today. And I will say that the biggest turning point for me, and this was something I struggled with for years, I couldn't figure out, what to do or how to get into this field. And I was always told remote work is just a pipe dream. This is something that's reserved for the most qualified, the most worthy. And I felt like it was just impossible, to get into something like this, because it is really niche and it is challenging. And, especially now with talent acquisition and how niche it is, and all the layoffs, it felt impossible for But the biggest turning point for me was when I stopped waiting for things to align perfectly, and started surrounding myself with people, truly started to surround myself with people that were doing exactly what I wanted to do and that were living the life that I wanted. And it did take a lot of time. It took a ton of networking calls. It took, saying yes to so many projects that I'm very proud of. But, I put a lot of work into, getting to where I am today. But at the end of the day, I stopped waiting for everything to align perfectly. Oh, I have to get this certain job and, be on this certain path. And I need to be, I just stopped worrying about that and also stopped worrying about what others thought.
What does it really take to lead with impact in today's ever-evolving world? Welcome to Inside the C-Suite, the podcast where influence, energy, innovation, and empathy converge. Hi, I'm Christy Honeycutt, your host. Join me as I sit down with the boldest voices in leadership, visionaries who are not just making decisions, but making a difference. In every episode, we explore the heart of leadership. How do high-performing leaders harness their energy? How do they lead with empathy without losing their edge? How do they turn disruption into innovation and pressure into purpose? You'll hear unfiltered stories of adversity, resilience, and the raw moments that shaped true influence. This isn't about perfection. It's about presence, passion, and the energetic exchange that fuels transformation. Inside the C-Suite is your invitation to lead from a deeper place with intention, connection, and courage. If you're ready to go beyond the surface and unlock what really moves leaders to action, hit subscribe and step inside. You can find us wherever you get your podcast fix. Inside the C-Suite, well, we're an energetic exchange. Let's lead with influence, live with energy, and create with empathy.
Which was always, as someone who, I'm known to be emotional and I do wear my heart on my sleeve. And, that was also a really big obstacle, is just stop caring what people think. And I started really pursuing like what I wanted. And then on top of that challenge was finding a way to take my remote career abroad, to live overseas. Fun fact, I used to live overseas with my family a very long time ago. And since then, I've always wanted to go back. I've always felt that longing and that pull to come back to Europe. And that was always really challenging to navigate. And I did join companies that I had remote jobs, but I wasn't allowed to go abroad full time. And so figuring out and overcoming that was a huge obstacle. But thanks to my new role, and being the remote advocate and building that brand around myself and becoming a remote, I don't want to say expert, but becoming someone that has a lot of knowledge in this area, I've been able to land a fully remote role that does allow me to work from anywhere. Thank you, Testlio. And so I finally am able to overcome that challenge this summer, actually, and move to Spain. So all of these experiences that have taught me, to wrap it up, is, just being patient and being resilient and having that self-belief and trusting that things will fall into place if I keep showing up and pushing myself and doing the work. So yeah, in a nutshell, that is something I've overcome. Life's not perfect, but I'm sure there's another challenge waiting for me. I'm sure there is, but that's something I'm very proud of.
Well, you know what they say, life is more about how we respond to the challenges than the actual circumstance themselves, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
You mentioned so many things in your answer that I'd love to, maybe drill in a little bit on some of these. But you mentioned like surrounding yourself by the right people. So how did you actually go about doing that in order to either, get a role in TA or get the right role in TA? Like what did you actually do to make that happen?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So for a long time, I was doing it wrong. And when I was doing it wrong, I was asking. I kept asking for things and I kept reaching out, and I wasn't showing my value in the way that I do now. And so what I did and what has helped me was I slowed down and started focusing on building really, truly genuine relationships, very genuine and lasting. Back then, years ago, I felt so desperate and I felt so anxious. I just wanted to resolve my problems and overcome my obstacles very quickly, because it's very normal to feel very anxious and sometimes desperate. I felt desperate, and I didn't know like how to approach it in the right way. But once I figured out to slow down. One of my former managers told me, slow down to speed up. And that's something that I have to tell myself every single day, because coming from staffing and being also, having a lot of sense of urgency already, like in TA and as a recruiter, I needed to slow down. And so how I did that was, I made the time and effort to reach out to these people, contribute to their work, volunteer to offer help, free help. I never asked for anything in return for a really, really long time. I showed support in their work. I showed up,
Pace of change in the world of business is fast, and that drives incredible complexity for the world of human resources.
Welcome to the HR Data Lab's Brown Bag Lunch, a series of conversations with experts inside and outside the world of human resources on how to innovate, measure, and evolve our practices.
Our goal is to help provide you with practical examples of how HR has to change and to meet in this complex business environment.
Every week, we'll talk to new and different voices on all aspects of human resources.
And guess what? You get to chat with us live.
Live?
Live.
So they can answer questions or they can ask us questions.
They can ask, they can answer, whatever they want. They get to talk with us live.
That's awesome.
Sometimes we geek out on the data and technology that underlie the processes that drive the world of HR.
But the conversations are always insightful and fun. So please enjoy the HR Data Lab's Brown Bag Lunch.
And demonstrating, how much I valued and appreciated, what they were doing. And I became very curious. Again, not looking for a quick fix, but trying to take a really more genuine and empathetic approach, just being human, right? That's how we're remembered. And so yeah. And then over time, doors started to open because I wasn't just immediately asking for things anymore. I really wanted to offer and show value in unique ways. And that right there over time just started opening up doors, whether it was opportunities or getting referred, and that's actually like how I got, to where I am today. So just finding ways to add value in small ways for a long period of time. I know it's the long game and people don't always like to do that, but that's why you have to be patient and just trust in the process. So I would say, yeah, those things right there is kind of, the approach I took.
Love it. Thanks. So I was just hearing you talk, and it's like super empowering, especially for women to hear this. So I'm wondering, like, if in a nutshell, you can recap, like, what were those essential skills that you think you cultivated to make all of this happen? Like, what really helped you achieve this flexibility? Maybe some recommendations that people can take away from it if they wanted to kind of put this into action themselves, especially women, right? If there's things specific to being a woman.
Yes, absolutely. So I would say that some of the skills that I've obtained over time and I'm constantly trying to improve and embody in myself is, number one is having confidence with humility. So trusting my own voice but staying open to learning and feedback, being very receptive to feedback is huge. I was always asking for that and always came across as very open-minded and, because people tend to want to work with those types of people rather than this is my way or the highway or stay in your lane. You have to be very open-minded, but also confident too, and trusting your own voice and sticking to your why. I also believe another really important skill to have is, having that emotional intelligence. So, my approach is always leading with empathy, trying to be a very good active listener and communicating very clearly. Again, sticking and trusting my gut and staying true to my why. And then one of my favorite skills, something that is so, so important is simply resilience. So I will say, I will be the first to admit it has not been easy. It hasn't been easy for a really, really long time. And that's why I'm a really big advocate on portraying on LinkedIn that there have been a lot of challenging times. I've gotten made fun of, for being a remote advocate. I've been told no thousands of times. I've told that it was impossible. I've told that I needed to wait my turn and sit back and stay in my lane. And you know what? And I decided finally, I'm like, no, I'm not going to take that as an answer, and that's why I go back to surrounding yourself with people that align to where you're going. It's okay to let go of those people and environments that are just not aligned anymore. The short answer is I've just simply outgrew that traditional 9 to 5, overworking myself type of ordeal. So staying resilient, being able to bounce back after countless of no's, and being able to bounce back from setbacks and keep leading through the uncertainty. Resilience, especially as women, it's very, very important because we do get told no a lot. And then just one other thing I like to add that is important is also, of course, leading with integrity and authenticity. So I'm always going to be now a very big advocate with staying true to my values and showing up as my full self. Because I feel like at the end of the day, there's a lot of fake things out there, and Instagram or any sort of social media, people are always advertising their best selves. I've achieved this. I've done this. Everything is great. Everything has been so easy. And I'm just one of those people, like, I resonate more with the ones that are just real. They show up in a very genuine, very authentic way. And it's allowed me to keep pushing forward despite all the challenges and the obstacles. It's allowed me to be like, you know what? If that person that I admire, if she overcame all of those things and is, I could do that too. So that's what kept me going. Are those key factors right there.
Okay, can you tell us more about being made fun of?
Oh my gosh. Yes. Yes.
What is that?
So, it's funny because before my job at Testlio, I worked in a very, very traditional corporate environment for years. Like I said, I was in TA for 7 years. And this is the first time where, I'm truly, truly working for a remote first company. And it's very, very different environment. So when I started gaining the confidence, the guts to start telling people, like, I want to move abroad. I want to take my work abroad. Like, I'm a remote advocate. I always felt like I was being rebellious. And one of my friend, Michelle, who is the founder of Remote Rebellion, who I joined and participated in her program, and it was amazing. But I always felt kind of like the rebel of the company. Yes, I did a good job and I did what I needed to do. But every time I would kind of mention those things, you kind of get the side comments and, oh, like, I don't think that's possible. Like, that's funny. And, oh, yeah, that's definitely not going to happen. Yeah. And I won't say specific, let's just say I was kind of judged, but that's okay because it wasn't very traditional with what I wanted. So I just kind of let those things go over time. I mean, also, even sometimes I would get made fun of from, friends and, sometimes family. 'Cause they'd be like, why do you want this? Like, some people are just more traditional or more office advocates. And I'm not saying remote work isn't for everyone, but it's something I wanted. So, but yeah, I would definitely get the side glances or the rolling of the eyes. Like, yeah, okay, like, that's definitely not going to happen. But yeah. I ignored it, and but now look where I am.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're an early adopter, and that happens with every kind of new trend. And so, good for you for making that happen.
Thank you so much. We're still learning. We're still growing, though. Nothing's perfect. I won't sit here and say, yeah, my life is perfect. It's definitely not. And I still have, a long way to go. But at least now I'm a lot more clear with my vision and what I want out of my life. So it's a good feeling to have, to finally stick to something that I genuinely want.
Love that. That's great. Thank you for sharing all of that, Casey. Let's shift over to talking about recruiting. And I'm curious to hear just in this market, even still finding really good talent, but then also retaining amazing talent at any given company can be really challenging. So, what's something that you've tried and had success with?
Yes, great question. So something I have found success with, and as I mentioned, and I like this is something that is branded. Like I am an empathetic person. Okay. I can't hide it. I wear my heart on my sleeve and I always try to treat people the way that I would want to be treated. So I would say something I found success is by being just a true advocate for people. And what that means to me is showing up consistently, trust over time, and leading with empathy, not just when it's easy, but especially when it's not. You know what I mean? And, I truly believe as human beings, we all want to feel heard and seen and understood and valued. And that's the kind of environment that I strive to create every single day, whether it's in my community or whether it's in my job or whether it's with my family and friends, my personal life. Like I want to show up and I want to make sure everyone is feeling seen and understood and they feel important, because we need that. And so for me, it's not just about the paychecks or the perks. Yes, they're great. And a lot of reasons why we, it definitely is an added bonus, right? But it all starts with trust. And that begins with the very first conversation when I speak with candidates. I'm always very honest and transparent about expectations, company culture, opportunities for growth. But just as importantly, I take the time to really listen. So I trying to understand what each candidate needs, what they hope for, what matters most to them, and as someone after they join the team, I make it a priority to stay connected and not just about work, because there's more to life than just work, but about how they're really doing, So I believe in giving people real ownership over their work and creating a space where their ideas are heard and valued and actually acted on. Some of the best managers I have done this for me. And as hopefully a future, whether it's a TA lead or whatever kind of leader that life may have in store for me, like that's what I would hope for. And so when people feel seen, trusted, and empowered, they don't just stick around, they grow and they contribute more deeply and they help shape a culture that others actually want to be a part of. So, yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for that. Yeah, the empathy, I think um we sometimes will ask questions of our listeners about like qualities in women leaders and what really differentiates men from women in leadership roles, and empathy is usually one of those qualities that comes out for a quality of a woman leader, and that that's just something that I think runs through a lot of our veins and is very natural to us. And I think I've been big on like leaning into your feminine energy and your feminine side and leading from that natural place rather than trying to like box yourself into a more masculine energy, because I think that's where a lot of women think that they can thrive or think that they're going to get success, because that's what a lot of us have been told too, right? You get kind of like positively reinforced for some of those behaviors. But I love that you're really leaning into what comes naturally to you, and that you found success with that. And I'm sure all the people that you work with really appreciate that as well.
Well, thank you. Yes, I can't agree more with you, Krista.
Okay, this is going to be our last question. I'd love to hear a little bit more about TotallyTA and what it provides to the community of talent acquisition professionals and even job seekers. I was noticing that you guys do supportive type stuff for job seekers. So can you tell us a little bit more about the community?
Yes, absolutely. I love this question. So this community was founded by me and my co-founder, Tom Brown, who is in the lovely country of Scotland. And so, and as you both know, like TA has been a real challenge these last couple of years. There's been mass layoffs left and right. And I know so many qualified people in TA from around the world that are still looking after 6 months, a year, 2 years. And so the whole goal behind TotallyTA and building this community was simply bringing back the human element of TA. And all the things I've learned for my personal self and how to successfully network and build relationships, those are so crucial. I think networking is one of the most important things you can do in our field nowadays, especially if you want help to get to where you want to be. And so me and Tom wanted to create a space where it's easily accessible for people to do just that. So what the community actually offers is, number one, monthly masterclasses going over a variety of topics, trends in 2025, employer branding, AI. We've had guest speakers. We're going to have a guest speaker from Zapier, from Remote, from these great companies. And these masterclasses are hosted from really amazing TA leaders from around the world, just sharing their insights and giving advice to everyone in the community. And everyone in the community, by the way, it covers North, South America, Latin America, all over Europe. And now we are expanding in our APAC region. And we have about over 500 members now in 4 or 5 months, which is really exciting and we host these masterclasses because I don't want people to only just listen to me and Tom, right? It's important to gain other perspectives as well from very thought industry leaders in TA. Another thing we offer is I share now on a biweekly basis curated and vetted jobs in talent acquisition on a global scale. And because I'm a remote advocate, I'm constantly sharing remote opportunities, again, that are fully vetted. Yeah, from a lot of research. And then on a weekly basis, we host what we call Talent Seeker Connect calls, hosted by a member that we brought in, Martin, where on a weekly basis, he's supporting the job seekers that are in the community, whether you're in the US or Europe or wherever you are in the world, going over a variety of different topics to aid them in their job search, whether that's resume crafting or networking strategies, anything that comes to mind. That's what those calls are meant for. And we're constantly evolving and building the community. So, we try to be as interactive as possible and take any suggestions as possible. But yeah, basically at the end of the day, we just wanted to bring back the human element of our roles. And that's why we also do host bi-weekly virtual coffee chats as well, or monthly coffee chats, just to create a space where people like you and I can just simply meet like this and get to know each other. And the community is filled with people who are working, not working, whether you're just starting TA or you've been in TA for 20, 30 plus years. It's for everyone in TA and recruitment.
Beautiful. That's very similar to why we started doing what we did, is to really bring back that connection, the human element. And to clarify, so the job seeker meetup or meeting is for job seekers, not just in TA.
So everyone in the community, great question. Everyone in the community has to be in TA or in recruitment. Because there are a lot of really amazing groups out there, but we wanted to be specialized and niche, and we want to be relevant. That's the biggest thing. We want to be relevant. And so everyone in the community is in TA and recruitment, and these calls are tailored towards TAs and recruiters that are currently job hunting or just got impacted, or they're thinking about leaving their current job. Everyone's situation is different, but it is a weekly support call where you hop on, whether you're here or there. And Martin is amazing at what he does, and he gives incredible advice tailored specifically towards people in our field.
Thanks for clarifying. I wanted to make sure we weren't sending people that weren't TA professionals. Well, this was amazing. We should also talk further about collaborating on, some opportunities in the future. But thank you, Casey, for joining us today and sharing all of your knowledge and wisdom and more about the community. For all of those tuning in, thanks for listening. Be sure to like, share, subscribe. You can find the video version of this on YouTube. And until next time, we'll see you soon. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Love the convo? Then don't stop here. Check out Talent Collective, where badass women in recruiting connect, grow, and maybe, just maybe, take over the world. Hit that subscribe button, share with your crew, and let's keep proving that talent isn't just a pipeline problem, it's a leadership revolution. See you next time, unless you're ghosting us like that candidate who swore they were excited about the offer.